The most important aspect of Indonesian Islam was that while it accepted Islam as a faith, Islam as an international message, it never ever rejected its own cultural inheritance. I can name one country to our immediate west which thinks that history began in 726. Right? 712, with the invasion of one particular force. No, its history begins with Mohenjo-daro. And Indonesia understood that the Borobudur temple is as much a part of the extraordinary, you have to see these achievements to believe what architecture can be. That this Buddhist temple was part of Indonesian achievement. After all, who built it? Indonesians built it. Their ancestors built it. Right? It's now almost a trope to say, to discuss Ramayana in Indonesia. But while we are discussing Ramayana in Indonesia, and by the way, Ramayana in Indonesia goes on during Ramzan, and they actually fast through the day, break their fast, and then come, because they belong to both worlds. They belong to the world of faith, which is personal, and they belong to the world of culture, which is part of their, as I said, their inheritance. You must remember that this is not just unique to Indonesia and to India. A civilizational country like Iran also has maintained the architecture and preserved and is proud of its architecture and of its art and of its poetry from the days when Persia was not Muslim. Indeed, it is very often forgotten that when Taliban decided to blow up the Bamiyan Buddhas, I think all of you are from the academic world, so you will know when and what I'm talking about. Iran made a special plea to the Taliban requesting that they would like to actually take away the Buddhas and preserve them. Right? So the importance of a indigenous and powerful culture as part of the story of life is something that every civilizational race, every civilizational nation, society, has maintained as part of it. Now, as I was talking about Ramayana, and the tendency is to see the influences on the Indonesian Ramayana from the Sanskrit origin, and of course they were, or even from the Sri Lankan Ramayana, right? And of course they were there because there was always intellectual exchange. Intellectual exchange, my dear friends, didn't start with Jawaharlal and the Nehru University. It existed, has existed as part of academic discourse from ever since education became important to people. But the original, the Japanese version of the Ramayana is the Kawakin Ramayana. And that Ramayana is the one which actually changed, in many senses, the role of Sita. And Sita has become a very powerful figure in that Ramayana. Right, and you can see here how, the local cultural synthesis adds so much by way of positive difference to texts and to literatures. I don't believe that literature has a boundary. I don't believe that literature can be defined by walls. Right? it is universal, right? And therefore, it speaks to every single human being. Great literature, right? Let's not confuse great literature with the current contemporary art form. It speaks also to every single human being, which is television. But the deepest form of literature, Homer can speak to me as much as to any Greek. The spread of Islam from the 7th century is testimony to what I call a common sense definition, that there is a pre-Islamic period. It's common sense. Right? If Islam came, the message of Allah came through the Quran, it came in the 7th century. Then there was a period before the 7th century, right, in which people lived in a certain form, spoke languages, and these sensible societies incorporated their past into the new experience provided by the emergence of a great faith. This leads to an extremely important question. Does culture begin with religion? Those who think that culture and religion are synonymous inevitably lose a tremendous treasure from their own treasure house. Not from any foreign treasure house, from their own treasure house. And as I said, the great civilizational societies understood the power of culture and preserved it, built upon it, learned that this was important to many succeeding generations. That culture did not have to reinvent itself. Culture moved like a river, perhaps slowly. It sometimes changed its banks, sometimes it's changed course, but it remained the one continuous flow. It was not a new flow which entered the stream. I would also assert that this assimilation of previous cultures with Islam is actually Quranic. This might surprise some of you who may or may not be familiar with the Quran Sharif, because the Quran is very clear. The Quran Sharif is very, very clear. Allah says in the Quran that I have sent prophets to you in all languages. What does that mean? That there is diversity in the world. Allah is described as Rabbul Alameen, the Rabb of everything. He is not described as Rabbul Muslimeen. So he is the creator of everything. He is thereby the creator of all languages. He is thereby the source of all cultures. And all cultures are equally powerful. And therefore, since creation, the existence of particular cultures has actually strengthened this thing that we call civilization. The Quran recognizes the existence of many faiths. Right? It recognizes and recommends. Of course, it believes that Islam is the best, is the true faith. But it also says, it also says that famous verse, that your faith for you and my faith for me. And if this is not a definition of coexistence, then what is? And therefore, this is why when Indonesia says that in its constitution recognizes 6 official religions. Najib Sahab, I hope I am right when I say it recognizes 6 official religions, including Hinduism as one of its official religions. Actually, Indonesia is being Quranic by accepting that yes, there may be people of other faiths and we have to live in peace with them. Not in conditions of aggression or dominance, that in a society everyone is equal and for God's sake leave judgment to God. Sometimes, not always. Sometimes the worst enemies of faith are the priests of the faithful. The landscape architecture of urban Indonesia is something that you really have to go and see to recognize how truly they believe in this syncretic coexistence. The statuary is magnificent. It's magnificent. You can start with the paintings at the airport lounge. You can start with the paintings at the airports and then go anywhere. It's not just the ancient monuments. It's the current statuary and statues that are put up and visibly in all the streets. Where Islam did play a very distinctive role in Indonesia was in the struggle against colonialism. It was a source of identity, it was a source of resistance, and it became a mobilizing force. And that is why, a person like Imam Bonjol is the national figure of Indonesia. The 9 saints, right, are still remembered. And what did they represent? Even Muhammadiyah, which was formed in 1911, played a very defining role in the mobilization of the people. One of the most important aspects of Indonesian Islam, my friends, is, and this is a great lesson to fellow Muslims like me, and like all of us who are Muslims, that they put Islam above sect. Please think about it. So many Muslims have now made their sect more important than their faith. Right? And Indonesians are very clear. And therefore, as I have written and as I have said, Islam was sent by God. Sects were created by men. And they still believe, therefore, in the message. And that is what keeps the nation, I tell you, and their respect for tradition. I think it's called Kevatina. The respect for tradition is such an important and vibrant part of their identity. I would like to touch briefly before I end that on the evolution on the social evolution of Indian Muslims. I'm always a little reluctant to use phrases like Indian Islam or Indonesian Islam or any form. Islam is the same. The people are different. So there is nothing really called Indonesian Islam. If I may forgive, there's nothing called Indian Islam. Islam is Islam. Now, there are Indonesians who are Islam, and they may have certain differences in language, culture, behavior patterns, and so on from Indians. And there are Indians who are Muslim, who are. So it is better to say Indonesian Muslims, not Indonesian Islam. And perhaps you could encourage such change in terminology in your faculty and in your university.
Right.
But perhaps the most important ruling dynasty of Muslims in India was the Mughal ruling dynasty. It may surprise a lot of people to know how proud the Mughals were of their ancestry to Genghis Khan. Now, it may shock a lot of Muslims to know that Genghis Khan was not a Muslim. Right? Just because Khan is not a Muslim title. I know certain countries have prime ministers named Khan, but Khan is not a Muslim term. Khan is a Mongol term, which just represents, a title of a certain stature. Right? And beyond Genghis, the great mother figure in the Mongolian tradition, in the Mongol tradition. And who is this mother figure? This mother figure is Alankua. Alankua is the mother figure from which generations later, right, through the nasl of Genghis Khan, emerge the Mughals, who we call the Mughals. And of course their paternal ancestry was through Taimur. But they were far more attached to their maternal ancestry than they were to their paternal ancestry. Because culturally, they brought strong belief systems from pre-Islamic times into their thinking, into their behavior patterns, and into their... They understood the need of cohesion. They understood the need, at least some of them, not all of them, but most of them. That's why they lasted. Most of them understood the need, and therefore the Emperor Akbar banned beef. He says, why do you make your stomach into a graveyard of animals? It's because the social cohesion was much more important to him than one dinner. Here is another story that Humayun was basically the second of the emperors, and his father Babur had ruled for only 4 years. But he had ruled for 10 when he was driven out from Delhi by the Pathans, by Sher Shah Suri. And as you know, he went over for sanctuary when he was in exile to Persia. And there Shah Tamas, after having heard, when they finally signed the agreement and he was ready to come back, so Shah Tamas, the Persian monarch, asked him, I said, don't you think you should invite me over for dinner one day, right? And give me some Indian food, Hindustani food. And of course, they used to. You know what Humayun served? Humayun served khichdi. And this khichdi was unique because the Persians had never tasted it. Right? And they were delighted at eating this. So this was pride in local cuisine already, which is emerging from that time. It may surprise many of you to know that most of the Mughals, one important exception apart, you know who it is, that most of the Mughals believed much more strongly in astrology than any one of us present. Would not do a thing without checking about the auspicious time from their astrologers. Even Babur, in fighting in Central Asia, asked his astrologer for the auspicious moment when he would go for battle. Humayun never did a thing. He was an astrologer himself. Never did a thing without checking. When he was totally devastated, when he did not have a single rupiah to his name or with him, and he was in the desert when his child was born, he told he had gone on some raid, and his court astrologer was Maulana Chand. Maulana Chand was kept during the birth of his son. Jalaluddin, in order to actually chart the horoscope. And when he saw this horoscope made, he got a second opinion. And the second opinion was from India's most famous astrologer of the time. His name was Jyotik Rai. And Jyotik Rai remained with the courts of Humayun, his son Akbar, and up to Jahangir's time. And Jahangir records in Jahangir-Nama that he was advised by his astrologer not to take a grandson to Kashmir because there would be an accident. And he says, I should have listened to him, but there was an accident. Fortunately, he says, the astrologer told me the child would not eventually come to harm, which it did. So, it was, as I was saying, it was part of the normal cultural behavior patterns of people who placed gave an enormous amount of weightage to this part of their inheritance, right? The music, the culture, the literature, the poetry from Khosrow downwards that has emerged, the Khane-Khana of the time, Bairam Khan's son, his Hindi poetry is still a part of school literature, which is studied in schools. So this extraordinary flowering and their ability to assimilate with Indian culture, Indian civilization was because of the minds that had been opened by cultural inheritance. This is the power of culture. What culture does is keeps your mind open. Culture does not close doors with the heavy jam of doctrine. The real change in that started coming about started from the 18th century, and it started from two focal points. One in the Arab world, we all know of Abdul Wahab and his impact on society. Less is known about an Indian scholar, Shah Waliullah. But Shah Waliullah introduced the concept of space between Hindus and Muslims. And by attributing all empires rise and all empires fall. Because empires are made by men. Empires are not made by God. Even those who claim that their political power from the divine right of kings know in their hearts that it is only the ability of steel and gunpowder rather than God which has blessed them with the throne. It is that they started finding religious reasons for human decline. And here came the rise or the revival of what I call the artificial fundamentals. An artificial fundamentals. That seeking a theory to find the future from an imagined past. And this is very important, not from the past, but from an imagined past. When you seek justifications out of artificial quasi-falsehoods, then you cannot find the right direction towards the future. In the world that we live in today, it is my view that a theocratic state is not sustainable in the modern architecture of stability. Apart from what intellectual arguments I might have. Right? Today, the world seeks leadership which can provide economic growth. Economic growth cannot come amidst social instability. Economic growth cannot come amidst conflict. As simple as that. And those who think that conflict is the way forward are actually living in, we shouldn't be nasty about medieval, because many things about medieval era were actually quite good. But they're living in a form of, semi-barbarism. Right? This is an age in which, the world has to live as part of a coexistence of nations, as a coexistence of views, differences. As Prime Minister Modi put it, the age of expansionism is over. It also means the age of imposition is over. It also means that, the cultures of the world are create a garden, and no garden can be sustained by a single flower. Right? A single flower will only live in a China vase, a China vase. Right? It will not survive in a garden. Right? Therefore, the way to the future is the society which can create jobs. That's what the young need. A society which can deliver growth. Now, you can see a society which is committed to democracy. And you can see with the experience of Indonesia how it has actually evolved and is on the way to becoming a major economic power through the success of syncretic culture, democracy, and the powerful creative juices of freedom. That and this change, never forget, has been wrought by Muslims, Hindus, Christians, all of them working together. As 88% of the population, it's obvious that Muslims would have a larger share of the voice. And therefore, they have contributed their share in the evolution towards this state. It makes us in India and our brothers in Indonesia into natural partners for the future. I began with a question about the spelling and the sound or phonetics of Jakarta. Let me end with a question which all of you can consider and think about. How far is India from Indonesia? Right? Psychologically, we always see, I see it's 6 hours to Singapore and then another hour and a half. So 7 hours away, 8 hours away, 7, 8 hours you reach Paris. Right? So it must be as far as Paris. No. Indonesia is just 100 nautical miles away from India. Please get the geography of India right. The geography of India ends at the southernmost point of the Andaman Islands. From the southernmost point of the Andaman Islands to Aceh, I think. That would probably be, if I'm not wrong, the nearest point, right? Is just 100 nautical miles or thereabouts. Right? We are that close. I may suggest here also that under Prime Minister Modi, he has done something very significant. He has changed the meaning of neighbor. Today, India's neighbors are not those who may or may not be geographically conjoined. Neighbors, what is the point of having a neighbor you can't reach? A neighbor is now defined by where you can reach, not by where you are. There are 2,000 flights to and from Dubey, from India. All of them packed. They used to be before this pandemic seized us by the scruff of our neck, scruff of our throat. can name one country where you cannot fill the seats for 2 flights a week. So who is our neighbor? Today, with Indonesia, the journeys the voyage towards Indonesia and Indonesia towards us has come to a point, is maturing to a point where you will see a tremendous, I think, in the decade ahead, you will see where precisely and how positive horizon that awaits the friendship between both countries. Thank you all very much for your patience, and thank you very much for being, for listening to me with so much kindness. Thank you, Gautam, and thank you, Najib.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Shambhavi.
Thank you so much, sir. It was indeed great listening to you. Before we move to our question and answer session, we may have special remarks by Her Excellency, Ambassador of Republic of Suriname, Madam Aashna Kanhai. I request Ayushi, a student of JNU, to introduce the House to Her Excellency, Ambassador of Republic of Suriname.
Thank you, Shambhavi. It's an honor for me to introduce Her Excellency Aashna Kanhai Madam, the Ambassador of Republic of Suriname. She has done bachelor's in notary law and did a successful intern at the Peace Palace, The Hague, and some postdoctoral stints. She has a master's degree in international law from Erasmus University, Rotterdam. She speaks Dutch as her mother tongue, and he is a student in Bahasa Indonesia in Jawaharlal Nehru University. She started her professional career as a lawyer in Paramaribo and combined it with part-time lecturing at the Federal National Relations at University, Suriname. She authored a 2-weekly column on semi-political and legal topics in daily newspaper of her country and advised member of parliament on pending issues of 2012. She was appointed as ambassador to India, concurrent to Sri Lanka and Bangladesh. Thank you. Over to Chair.
Thank you, Ayushi. There was some glitches in the network. I hope the audience will forgive me. Her Excellency Madam Aashna Kanhai has been indeed my student for the last 2 years, and during this time she has learned a lot about Javanese Muslims, culture and tradition, because there is a substantial percentage of Indonesian diaspora in Suriname, and these 2 streams from Asia migrated to Suriname. One is from India and other is from Indonesia. And how peacefully these 2, I request the audience to kindly switch off their mic please, and how peacefully these 2 communities have existed since the time of colonial period and indentured labor system has been a topic of our general conversation, and our students are quite cordially associated with the Suriname embassy. They go and sometimes they enjoy Javanese food. It is really great. Now I invite Her Excellency to kindly give her remarks. Thank you.
Thank you. I hope I'm there.
Yes, you are there.
Seriously not hearing myself.
Yeah.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Shri MJ sir, for making my day. In fact, making the rest of my week and maybe making my whole month, because lectures like this are gems in a garden of a lot of pearls section. Thank you so much for being part of today's webinar. I would also start by, I've already been introduced. So my country is, as all of you may or may not know, a member of the OIC, the Organization for Islamic Cooperation. The Islamic element of my country's population has a connection with the Indic-Belt. When dialogue is being initiated between partners within the Indic-Belt, like maybe today is what is happening as the initiative, it may also be worth analyzing the effect on communities outside this belt. Perhaps one such community is my country. In the 19th century, after the abolition of slavery, the Dutch took Indians from India and Javanese from the island of Java and other surrounding territories like Surabaya and Sumatra. And why do I know this? Because the ketchup from Surabaya is very famous in my country. It's even being made there.
Yeah.
But people were taken to replace the slaves on the sugar plantations in the Dutch colony Suriname. As you all know, my country and Indonesia were both colonies of the Netherlands. The endangered laborers, as that is what the Indians and Javanese were branded, took along with them their religion amongst other things. Islam was thus taken to Suriname by Muslims from Indonesia and India. Social structures with strong foundations in the Jamaat, for instance, in neighborhoods, are splendid Eid al-Fitr prayers on the national square, show immense flexibility of the Muslims of my country. 20% of the total population is follower of the Islam faith, out of which more than 50% is of Javanese Indonesian descent. By the way, my country has the biggest percentage of followers of the Islam in South America. The descendants of the Indonesian, the Javanese Muslims, are integrated part of the population of Suriname, showing flexibility towards a modern lifestyle in combination with preserving their faith. Gotong royong as a social structure mechanism in the desa, and everybody knows what a desa is. That's a community, a neighborhood where basically there is a strong social control, and it's actually good for a multi-ethnic society like the Surinamese one. So the Gotong royong system as a social structure mechanism is very common in the desas not only, but also in non-Indonesian neighborhoods, non-persons of Indonesian descent neighborhoods. And at the same time, there is simultaneously with the social structure a mosque, and attached are the Quran schools. That's how we in Suriname call the schools. And so the Javanese Muslims in my country exhibit a rich tradition of roots in Java and consider themselves exclusive followers of the Islam. Traditions of Javanism are often seen along the practice of Islam. I think this is one of the striking elements of Islam in my country, and I think this follows what Shri Akbar has already put in his lead, that tradition and religion can go together and they not necessarily need to be the same or coming out of each other. How do you say that? The Javanese Muslims, as I said, exhibit rich traditions of the roots in Java and consider themselves exclusive followers of the Islam. Quite tolerant, they are protective about practicing their religion, and they make sure that the religious education is part of an upbringing of their children. Halal food, for instance, is nowadays preferred by all ethnic groupings in my country because it seems to be more hygienic to the mind. Traditions, the tolerance as in respect other faith in my country is there, as the attitude of especially the Muslims of Indonesian descent avenue towards in favor of dialogue between different religious groups in my country. And this pictures a peaceful canvas of Suriname's multi-ethnicity. I think these were my special remarks. So I would like to thank again Dr. Gautam Kumar for considering me to be a part of this webinar, and Shri Akbar for being there and listening to me. Thank you so much, sir. And of course, all others, Dr. Muhammad Najib, whom I've not been introduced to, but I see you on the screen. Sir, it's an honor. I wish you all a successful webinar and congratulate the coordinator and his team, because I know that the students of Dr. Gautam Kumar are actually the best students of JNU. I mean, I'm not flattering myself, but the coordinator, Dr. Jha, and the team with today's webinar, and I definitely hope to learn from you in the course of your webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you, madam, and thank you.
Thank you so much, Her Excellency Ambassador of Republic of Suriname, Madam Aashna Kanhai. And it was indeed an informative session. we'll move to our question answer session. So in case the audience have any question, they can just write it in the chat section.
Yeah.
Take up the question one by one.
Yeah. Before we take up the questions, I just sum up what they have spoken. First of all, Shri MJ Akbarji, and I'm really thankful to you that you chose almost all the aspects of Indonesian Islam and culture, and the way you have explained that how Indonesians have kept Islam as different than the sect. The sect is different and the religion is different. So this is what we could see, and how they have preserved this today, which becomes a very unifying forces. And it's really great, and thank you, Aashna ji. You have I have personally visited your country and have seen the Muslim population there, so it's really great. I think these models are really good for us and for the other pan-Islamic countries to learn. And now I invite question answers. If they have any question, either you can write on the chat box, or if you can come up directly, just flag your hand. Is there any questions? Let me check. Thank you. I don't
Sir,
think.
there are two questions.
Yes. Could you just ask the? Could you just spell these questions? Narrate these questions.
Okay,
Sorry, I got disconnected for some reason.
Oh, okay.
there is one question from Mr. Ravi Ranjanya.
Rajan.
He's a student of Gautam Kumar. He also mentioned that. So his question is, what is the future of tolerance, technology, and women employment in Islam? But he did not mention that to whom he is asking, as it's a general question. So maybe the previous speakers can give the answer if they like. And the second question by the Zainuddin Syarif
From Indonesia.
India and Indonesia have similarities in culture as well as culture in Islam because of the arrival of character of life. So, just wanted to know about the comparison between Hinduism and characteristic of Islam.
Yeah. Shri MJ can answer this question.
Why don't I suggest that the question from India be answered by Muhammad Najib Saab, and the question from Indonesia I will answer.
Great, sir.
Right, so you can address the question from India first to
Dr. Najib.
yes, Dr. Najib.
Dr. Najib, you are there, sir.
If you don't mind, I propose that let me speak first, and after that, on the question and answer session, I will use my time to answer the question.
Okay, thank you. And hopefully in his lecture that probably the answer is already hidden. So thank you.
Right, so what are we doing now? Is there some clarity?
Yes, sir, kindly answer the question from Indonesian side, sir.
Right, so what is the question? Once again, please.
Sharita, could you elaborate the question? Your microphone is off.
Yeah, it is too much disturbance.
Other speakers can please switch off their mic so the disturbance will reduce a little bit.
No problem. Maybe later on we'll connect again.
Okay, so sir, the question is, India and Indonesia have similarities in culture as well as culture in Islam because of the arrival of Islam in Indonesia through Gujarat, we still preserve the religious, cultural, especially in commemorating death. So Hinduism gives us a character of life. So he wants to know about the characteristic between the Indonesian Islam and the Hinduism. Because I think, yeah.
Yeah, I can have a very simple answer to that, Sarita. All that I said in my remarks answers that specific question. That both in Indonesia and in India, the communities who acquired the faith of Islam did not abandon their language, did not abandon their cultural history. Today, if you go to Gujarat, Gujarati Muslims speak Gujarati. If you go to Bengal, you will find Bengali Muslims there speaking Bengali. In fact, the liberation war of Bangladesh was a war for the rights of Bengali as much as for Bengalis. If you go to Tamil Nadu, you will find today Muslims there speaking Tamil. And, they are Tamilians. So, the importance of culture was recognized by Indian Muslim communities and has been upheld very powerfully. Right? If you go on a political campaign to Bengal, you don't have to speak in separate languages. You speak in Bengali. If you want to be heard. If you don't want to be heard, of course, you can speak in other language. That is the same thing with Bahasa. That is the same thing with traditions and with the important fact that as I said, and also going back to the Quran Sharif, which is, God says that He has sent prophets in every language. That the Prophet of Islam, peace be upon him, Muhammad, is the last of the prophets, not the first. So therefore, before him, there have been many prophets, and they have come in all languages. So for God, all languages, all cultures are important.
Thank you, sir. One small question from my side. It's more about the culture and tradition, or what we share with Indic-Belt countries, particularly Indonesia and other Southeast Asian countries. Since for the almost for the 70 years, we concentrate on our immediate neighbors, and we were not able to concentrate on the countries which shared our culture and a lot more. Had we done that, we would have united all these countries into one cultural thread, and probably have made a big, a kind of big bonding and greater bonding and bigger family, which would have protected us from the further aggression, the way we have been facing from certain elements from our immediate neighbors. I hope you got my point. We have.
Yes, but I would not like to dwell upon the failures of the past.
Right.
I would like to dwell upon the successes of the future.
Okay.
So let's look ahead to what we can do next.
Right.
Why waste time on what we forgot to do 20 years before, 30 years before, 40 years before?
Sir, is there is time related from the future perspective? There is a question by the student Abhinav Shanha from JNIAS. And he is asking, how will soft power diplomacy will strengthen the India and Indonesian relation in present and the future?
So I think that's a very important element of the very good point. What is soft power? Soft power is a term mentioned in some book, right? But basically, it talks about non-political power. It talks of non-armed forces power. If you put it a little more bluntly, right? you go to Southeast Asia, and if you go to the Angkor Wat temples, take time off for something that is not very fashionable, which is go to the museum. Right? In the museum, right in front of the temple, you will find giant rock inscriptions. Giant rock inscriptions. And mind you, these are the rock inscriptions which have survived 2000 years of human idiocy, which has led to wars, destruction, ravages. God knows how much pain the people of those countries have passed through. Now, these are the things. And you will find the most brilliant Sanskrit lipi writing there. Now, tell me, wasn't this soft power 2000 years ago? How did India's so-called influence, I don't even like the word influence. It is a shared reality. It is not an imposed reality. So how did we begin to share a common understanding of philosophy, understanding of sciences, and so on? And it is shared because they gave some, we gave some. How did this happen? This was the ability to actually, this was the greatest instances of soft power. Soft power for us is not something that has emerged in a 21st century book. Soft power for us has been part of a tradition, known tradition for 3,000 years. Only when you see this do you understand what the power of literature can be. Iliad is soft power. You're still studying Odyssey. That's the soft power of the Greeks. Shakespeare is soft power. Like that, what we have to do in the future, and I was very, very keen to develop this, is how do we bring Indonesian literature to our young people? How do we take our literature? Let's remember one thing, by the way. One of our greatest and exports now is the television soap opera. Think about it. Why? Why has India's soap opera become so powerful in so many other societies, all over Africa, Southeast Asia, and so on? Also, a parallel question. I am talking to you in English. Some of you at least are listening in English. Our most powerful newspapers, let us say our richest newspapers are in English, not necessarily the most powerful or the largest circulated, but our richest because advertising comes from the English-speaking newspapers and media and news and the cacophony, right? But why hasn't one single soap opera in India appeared in English? We govern in the English language, but we never entertain ourselves in the English language.
Absolutely.
Because, right, we might write the law in English, but we still laugh and cry in Hindi, Bengali, Malayalam, Odia, Gujarati, Tamil, and so on and so forth. We laugh and cry. That is why the most powerful tongue is the mother tongue. English is a father tongue, it is not a mother tongue.
Thank you, sir. Now, I hope our keynote speaker remain with us for some time till one or two speakers speaking. If you have time, sir, you can approach. Now, Shambhavi, kindly go ahead.
Yes, sir. We are going to start the next session. So, moving along, I would like to call upon Ayushi to give us a brief introduction of Dr. Mohammed Najib.
Thank you, Shambhavi. It's an honor for me to introduce Dr. Mohammed Najib, the advisor of the Speaker of the People Consultative Assembly for International Affairs, Indonesia. Dr. Najib has done his PhD in political science from National University of Indonesia. He has worked as lecturer in engineering faculty in University of Muhammadiyah, Surabaya, and lecturer at ITS. He was also the member of House of Representatives of Republic of Indonesia and the Vice Chairman in the Parliamentary Cooperation Forum. And now he is the head of Foreign Affairs of Indonesian Association of Muslim Intellectuals. He is also the recipient of an award from Central Leadership Board of National Monetary Party. He also had published many books, like his famous novel published by Republica Daily Newspaper 2009, The Safari, The Way of Democracy, published by Republica Book recently in 2019. Thank you. Over to Chair.
Thank you, Ayushi. I have been interacting with Dr. Muhammad Najib for almost 6 years now. He came to JNU in 2014 and with the Education Minister of Indonesia, Professor Muhammad Nuh, and he gave lecture in JNU, and since then I have been interacting with him. I have visited his home in Jakarta, and I've met him in several lecturers, seminars, and he has continuously been writing on issues of political Islam that is pertaining to the Middle East, West Asia, and recently he has been continuously writing on Israel and Arabs bonhomie. So, and the best part of Indonesian writer is that they are very, very moderate in their approach, and they try to justify international issues more with the prism of the cultural background. So this has really been great. Thank you, Dr. Muhammad Najib. You agreed to join us. Kindly start your lecture, sir.
Okay, may I start?
Yes, please.
Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good
Waalaikumsalam.
afternoon and namaste.
Namaste.
First of all, I would like to say thanks a lot, especially to my dear colleagues, Dr. Gautam Kumar. He has already visited my residence, and on this moment, I would like to invite all of the speakers to visit my residence when you are in Jakarta. I also would like to say thanks a lot to the Indic-Belt Society who organized this international dialogue, which the theme Understanding Indonesian Islam. If I use the correction of the Honorable Mr. Akbar, we must read Understanding Indonesian Muslim. But if we understand the Arabic, because Muslim, that is the word only for men. And if we say woman, it Muslimah. So the complete and right term in understanding Indonesian, Muslim and Muslimah.
Great.
By the way, it is me having opportunity to speak among scholar and honorable person from India as well as from other countries like the Ambassador of Republic of Suriname. Hopefully, I could contribute fruitful thing either for India as well as Indonesia and other countries, and I'm ready to engage for further dialogue. Slide, please. I choose the title of my presentation, Moderate and Tolerant Islam in Indonesia, or we can read Moderate and Tolerant Muslim and Muslimah in Indonesia.
Sir, sorry to interrupt. Are you sharing your PowerPoint presentation?
Yes, I use a slide.
Then you
Which,
have to share it with the present now
Yes.
on the bottom.
Yes.
Because we cannot see your slide.
Slide by slide.
Yeah, but we cannot see your slide.
Yes. Oh, please check, dia tidak bisa lihat slide.
Ya, kami tidak bisa lihat.
Okay, I ask my assistant to make sure I use
Please.
slide.
In Google Talk, you have to go to present now and then click on that.
Yes. Let my assistant make
Yes.
sure if everything run well.
Please.
Bisa, sudah nyala.
Please click on present now in the bottom.
Okay. Could you see the slide?
No.
Coba. Moment please. 1 minute.
Bapak bisa gunakan mengetik present now. Yes.
Okay.
And
could
then
you see?
yes, now we can see. Yes.
Okay, thank you. I continue. Based on my experiences, if we talk about Islam, especially in the West countries, people will associate with Middle East or Arabic countries. Islam in Indonesia and in Southeast Asia in general actually are different. To understanding Islam in Indonesia, I will break the big title become 4 subtitle. Next slide, please. Next slide, yes. Geographically, demographically, historically, and politically. Next slide. Okay. Geographically, position of Indonesia is between 2 continents, Asia and Australia, and between 2 oceans, Indian Ocean and Pacific Ocean. Before era of airplane, people move from one country to another, use ship, and all of the ships have to pass through Strait of Malacca. That is the Strait of Malacca. If they move from west to east or from east to the west, the ship from Europe, from Africa, from Middle East, and from South Asia must pass the Strait of Malacca if they would like to visit China, Japan, and other countries in Southeast Asia. And they must pass the Sunda Strait, this Sunda Strait, or Lombok Straits, here, Lombok Straits, and Makassar Straits. If they move from Australia to the China, Japan, and other Southeast Asia countries, or if they would like to move from north to south, like from China to Australia. Next slide, please. Demographically, composition of Indonesian population based on data 2019, our population 236 million, and Islam
try to